Hi, I'm Natalie Nourigat. I'm a story artist at Disney, and today I'm going to show you how I draw Vanellope von Schweetz. So I'll be drawing on a computer, but don't worry, you don't need a computer to do this. If you have a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen, that's everything that you need. We're going to go through all the same steps no matter what tools you're drawing with. I've just drawn on a computer because this is how I normally draw at work. I'm a story artist, which means we go really quickly and we draw a lot of drawings that are rough and loose, but are clear to tell the story. Before it gets animated, we storyboard the film so that you can kind of read it picture by picture and tell what's happening. Even though it's not fully animated, it looks a little bit like a rough comic book. So on my computer, I'm going to grab a nice light gray color like this. And if you're drawing at home with a pencil, that's what I would use right now because I'm going to go back over these lines later with something darker like that, which could be a pen if you have a pen. So with your pencil, we're going to start drawing really light because we're probably going to erase some of these lines or want them to not be as dark and visible. So just starting really light, I'm going to start finding the gesture that I want for Vanellope. And instead of just drawing her straight on, I thought I might try and draw a pose where she's doing something, like in a little bit of action. So find a space on your page, kind of in the middle, and let's try and leave some room on the bottom, the top, and both of the sides so that we can add more stuff later if we decide to. So I'm going to put Vanellope's head just a little bit above the center, like right here. And you'll see I go really fast and rough and loose because I'm going to erase a lot of these lines later. So it's okay. I'm just looking for her gesture right now. So I think I'm going to have her in a 3/4 view, which means she's not straight on looking at us and she's not in a profile looking that way. She's going to be 3/4, so she's about halfway turned away from us. And that's a fun angle to draw from because you can see a lot of detail in the face and see how deep things are. So I draw kind of this cross shape on the ball at the beginning just to remind myself which way she's looking and help line up the features. So let's see, I would probably draw her nose poking out a little bit away from that crossbar line because it comes pretty far out from her face. And then her eyes are set a little bit in. So I'm going to do just a rough circle for one eye here and a rough circle for one eye here. And because this one's a little bit further away from us, I'm making it a little bit narrower. So it kind of makes the illusion that it's going to be set back in her skull a little bit if this one's a little bit more narrow than this eye. And then I'm going to put her mouth over here, and I'm just roughing in a really loose smile right now because I'm going to go back in and clean this up later. And for a little bit of personality and fun, I'm not going to have her eyes just looking straight ahead. I'm going to have her looking at something maybe off to the side, maybe up a little bit. So that kind of creates a question when you look at the art. What's she looking at? What's she smiling about? And then we can add something a little extra at the end if we have time. So for her cheeks, they also come out from her face. She's got these big kind of chipmunk cheeks that are really cute. And then her chin is not very far down from her mouth compared to other characters. Her mouth especially, but also her nose are really close to the bottom of her face. And then she's got a big forehead like a young kid or a baby. They often have big foreheads. So her features are mostly concentrated towards the bottom of her face. And then she's got these big cartoony ears, which I love to draw. They're almost as big as her eyes. At least the way I draw them, they are. And I don't think I'm going to draw the one on this side. You can if you want. I'm not sure we would see it from this angle. I think it might be behind where her eye is, so I'm going to leave it off for now. Next, I'm going to draw her bangs, and she's got these bangs that kind of are a little long. They kind of come down past the ears on both sides. I'm going to have one piece going up just for fun and a little bit breaking the silhouette there, not making it just smooth, and I'm gonna have one piece coming down over her face like that. And probably the other fun thing about drawing Vanellope is the eyebrows. If you're going to differentiate her from other characters, I'd say the eyebrows are one of the things to focus on because they're really thick, and that's different than a lot of other characters, so it's fun. They also show off her emotions really strongly, so anything she's doing with her eyebrows reads really strongly. And let's make her just a little bit impish because that's part of her personality. I'm gonna have maybe this eyelid coming down a little bit, like sarcastic, where she's maybe like raising an eyebrow, like really thick eyebrow. And then this one can kind of be arched, so it goes down and then up. Like, is that what you think? Okay. And I'm also going to draw a crease on her eyelid here. So it's like her eyes aren't all the way open. When they're closed just a little bit, that can help add a little bit of sarcasm or irony to an expression. And then she's got thick eyebrows too. Oh, sorry, eyelashes too. So I'm going to thicken this line at the outer corner of her eyes and extend them past that circle as if she's got eyelashes coming off, like that. Then for the hair, oh, and I'm just going to clean this up a little bit so it's clear what we're doing here. Don't need those lines. Don't need those lines. Cool. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're just sketching right now, so have fun, be loose, and don't worry about what it looks like right now because we're going to go in and clean it up later. Right now we're just trying to find the big shapes. So to that end, before I get too into the details on her, I'm just going to make sure that I like the overall gesture that she's doing. So really lightly with my pencil, because these lines are not going to be used later, I'm just going to try and find what is her body doing, what are her arms doing, what are her legs doing before I get too far, so I make sure that the pose has good energy. And I want to draw her walking forward. I want to draw her walking like this way. So I'm going to have her leaning a little bit that way as if she's moving. This is just a line of action that shows overall what her pose is doing. And then I think the ground is going to be like around here because Vanellope is a character who's about 2.5 heads tall. So she's got a really big head. If that's her head, her body is only about, oh man, like half of that. 2.5, 2.5 heads tall. So we have to fit all her arms and legs inside of just that much space. It's a pretty good Vanellope. Maybe I'll show you how to draw that one next time. Cool, so to that end, we're gonna make this pretty short. So really roughly just thinking about what her pose is gonna be. Her neck's about there, torso's pretty short, and there's this skirt like around here, and I'll have one leg kind of pushing off the ground and one kind of hitting the ground here like she's walking forward. And what suits this expression in this pose? I'd say either arms crossed or arms in her pockets. I like both of those poses a lot. Let's do crossed arms. So crossed arms, her shoulder's about here, but it's tiny shoulder. It's gonna go down and then cross over her body and tuck into the other one. And I'm gonna show you some real quick ways to draw complex poses like that, like a story artist. So I'm gonna erase, because we don't draw as detailed as some other artists. We just want you to be able to tell what's going on when you look at the picture, but it doesn't have to be perfectly on model or perfectly clean. So as long as it reads and you can tell what's happening, it's good enough. Cool, I think that's mostly the gesture that I'm going for. And then at the bottom, she's got these boots that just go up a little bit, like little booties. And you know what's missing, right? There's one really distinct part of her that's missing. It's the ponytail. That is also really fun to draw because, again, it's very cartoony. It's big and exaggerated, and it's almost as big as her head. So if she's looking kind of this way, the ponytail's going to be coming off of her head kind of this way because it's on the opposite side from her face, right? So I'm going to start at about here, I think, and come up really high, big swooping line that kind of whoop, flips up at the end. Lots of personality in that. And she's got a licorice hair tie up here. I'm going to draw like a little donut sitting on top that has two pieces coming out, like the two ends, like little TV antennas. Whoop, whoop. And then the rest of her hair, it's really thick through this part, and then it gets thin at the end. So thick and thin. And then you can draw, this is fun, you can draw lots of hairs going from here to here, however you want, however many you want, and those could be really fun to color later if you're going to color this in. So that's roughly the Vanellope I'm going to draw, and I'm pretty happy with that. I'm just going to go in and adjust a couple of things, erase here and there, and make sure I like it, but I think I do. Yeah. I'm going to go back into these arms and try and make them a little better. It's okay if you don't get it the first time, just keep trying. So I guess I want one of her hands to be a little further over so it's more facing us, like this. Yeah, and then I'm going to change this eyebrow to be a little bit more like, almost like a sad eyebrow. If one eyebrow is doing the sad shape and one eyebrow is doing more of like an arched up shape, that can make a fun, ironic, or sarcastic expression like this. And I'll draw her hair back in because I accidentally erased it. Cool. Okay, so that's my sketch layer. And now if you have a pen, this would be a good time to grab that and do a layer on top of that. I'm going to call that ink, and I'm going to switch to black. Okay, I'm going to go in just a little bit closer and look at the details. So let's start with her face. I'm going to start with the hair from here. And it's got these kind of gentle curves, almost like an S, which is a really popular shape in animation because it just has good energy to it. Anywhere you can put kind of an S shape or curves like that. These ones, there's a little bit of curves to it, but I'm going to keep it pretty simple. And now the eyes, super fun part. I'm going to try that top lid first with the heavy eyelashes and the crease in the eyelid. And then the bottom of the eye, I'm going to draw a little thinner. And then that big pupil. So you can leave a little sparkle in it if you want, like a part that you don't fill in black, if you want it to look like there's a little light reflected on her eye. You could even, I'm going to do it on this one to show you, you could even just outline her pupil and, her iris, and just draw a little pupil in there if you want, and then you can color it any color you want later. Either is fine. I kind of like eyes that are filled in black. I like the way that that looks, so I'm going to do that with her. But I'm going to leave that little sparkle on the side. And this eye, I'm gonna almost connect the bottom and the top lashes because her eye's kind of breaking the side of her face here, and I want to make sure that you see the edge of her eye. Okay, so then the rosy little cheek popping out, tiny chin, over to the other ear, and that's a pretty smooth line if you can. Go nice and slow, and it's okay to do it in a few pieces if you want to. And next I'm going to draw that big ear. It's so fun. I think I'm going to add a little break there. So instead of doing one big swoop, I'm actually going to do a kind of straight line there and then break it around to a swoop. So it feels a little bit more like an ear. Her nose is fun. I know I keep saying the word fun. She's a very fun character to draw because everything about her is so cartoony. That little nose, it's so tiny. You just draw a little circle. And I think the smaller the better because it's very, very small on her face in reality. So I'm going to do just a whoop, itty bitty circle there for her nose. And then her mouth is not just a swoop most of the time, although you can draw it like that. If you like drawing smiles that way, that's totally fine. With Vanellope, you can almost always see the edge of her cheeks being pushed up by her smile, and the smile itself is not just a U shape. It's normally more like a soft W shape, which kind of lends to that impish quality, like she's kind of holding back a snicker when she smiles. So I'm going to draw something like that where it is a smile shape, but there's almost a break in the middle of it. Maybe like that. I'm going to draw it a few times because I can. There, I like that one. Where the corner of her mouth is pretty close to the center of her face because she doesn't have like a really wide smile, right? It's pretty small in the center of the face. And now the eyebrows. So here's the kind of sad looking eyebrow, thick eyebrows. And then here's the one that has the little notch, and then it's raised up like, huh, really? Cool, I'm pretty happy with that. If you want to, this is something I do on my characters. I like to add just a little bit of shading around here on their face, kind of just to show where the top of the nose is and where the top of the cheeks are. Sometimes if you shade a little bit here, it can help the character feel a little bit more 3D. So not very strong, just like a couple broken little lines there. I like to add those in sometimes, or sometimes you'll see people doing that over on the cheeks just to make it look like they're pushed up a little bit. And I think that can be a cute look. All right, so let's keep going. I'm gonna draw her hair next. Here's like the back of her head going into the ponytail. There are these sections that are getting pulled back that way. So I'll draw them a little bit separate like that. If you've ever seen the way that a ponytail kind of pulls from the front of your head towards the back, it makes these lines that show the way that the hair is being pulled. Now the licorice hair tie, and I'm going to simplify this. There are like lines wrapping around this, but I'm not going to draw them like they're 3D or anything. I'm going to keep it pretty graphic. And I'm not going to draw exactly how they knot into that shape here because I think it reads okay just like this. And I'm going to keep it simple. Okay, now the ponytail. So fun. I love drawing that shape. Swoop, swoop. And I do stuff like this pretty fast, stuff like the hair, because it's an organic shape. In reality, it's not always this perfect shape. So things don't have to be like the same width apart. They don't have to be going exactly the same direction. I'm going to draw a hair starting from underneath this one that comes out more like that, just to add a little bit more interest and depth in there. And if you like, you can even draw hairs kind of coming off of it, like in reality. You know, it's okay to make things just like add your personality and add things where you think they look good. So now I'm gonna go down to the rest of Vanellope, and I'm mostly gonna draw from here down because I have that sketch underneath. I kind of know where I'm going now, and it doesn't really matter what I draw first or last. So I'll draw her neck, and I'm gonna put a little black line here just to show like there's a shadow from her head cast onto her neck. It can kind of make things feel like they're pushed back in space and they're a little bit more 3D. I'm gonna draw that shoulder and then that hand that's crossing over it. So just the big chunky finger and then the smaller ones underneath it. I like to group things like this together. Hands are pretty complicated to draw, but if you're going fast or you're kind of drawing like a story artist, it's okay to group things together so that they read well. So this shoulder, it's gonna go to a bend here in the elbow, and then it's gonna disappear into this other arm. So all that I'm gonna draw is the cuff of the sleeve of this arm in a big circle like that. And then I'm gonna draw it connecting to the elbow here, and to the elbow here, and then back up to the shoulder. And that's all you have to do. To give it a little bit of dimension, I'm gonna add a curved shape here to make it feel like, okay, it's kind of creased there. And then from this side, kind of like the opposite, working from the other arm, it's gonna come down like this. And I'm just gonna show a little bit of the elbow underneath there. And these are her hoodie ties, I guess. I just do little spaghetti shapes for the hoodie ties. And then the top of her hoodie, it's like a big swoopy shape. And one line underneath that, just to show the edge of the hoodie, right? It kind of disappears over there. And if you want, you can show the volume there like that. And then her other shoulder here, it's pretty small. It's on the far side from us, so I'm not going to make it very big, but I am going to try and draw the other side of that hoodie that's coming to connect with her sweatshirt over there. So I'm going to draw the outer edge of that like that, and the inner edge just like a little V. Like when you're wearing a sweatshirt, there's kind of a V there in the front, right? So great. We're getting close. You can see it coming together, right? If you're drawing really big on the paper and you ran out of space, you could just stop here because you've got her face and her upper body. But if you saved some room for the lower body, let's keep going. I'm gonna draw a poof for that pouch that's in her sweatshirt down here. And if you want, you can even draw the opening where she might put her hand in. And this is where like the stitching is. I'm gonna draw another line underneath that, kind of like the ribbing of the sweatshirt. And then the skirt, it's really a little shape, whoop. And there's 2 rows of this paper texture in it. And then the feet, I think in perspective, we're gonna see a little bit of the bottom of her foot here, so I'm gonna start with that. If we see the bottom of this, she's kind of got those like swirly treads on the bottom. If you have a color red, you could actually draw that in red if you want to, or we can go back in and do that later. And now I'm gonna draw the top of her boot. So that's the bottom, and the top is just this little toe shape, and then a little ankle. And that's the back of her foot. And then a little bit thinner than this, because you know the leg goes into the boot, the leg's gonna be a little bit thinner than the boot. I'm gonna draw her leg coming out of it. Whoop. A little thick. I think I wanted that line instead. Cool. I'm pretty happy with that. So that's the leg that's out in front, and then this leg behind, we're gonna draw a really similar thing. I'm gonna start with the bottom of the foot first. I find that actually helps me draw legs that I like if I draw the bottom of the foot, and then I just have to connect that to the hips. It kind of makes my job easier. So I think the bottom of her foot is gonna be about here, kind of flat on the ground. And I know that it comes up this way to connect to her body there, a little thinner than the boot. And I'm going to draw the top of the boot here. It's kind of curved up because of the way that her leg is pointed. You know, if her leg is a cylinder, this is kind of the perspective that we're seeing it in. So any shapes like this, they're going to kind of curve like down and up. And this leg is the opposite because she's walking towards us. This is kind of the perspective that her legs are doing. So the line of this boot is going to curve up like that. And when we put the stripes on her stockings, we're going to use a similar idea to get those in the right perspective. So again, thin to thick, down to the boot, and the boot's a little thicker. Just this little simple toe box on top. Cool. So we're actually doing really great. If you erase your pencil that's underneath, you've got a really good Vanellope already. And if you have a little bit of time, we can go in and add some super special details on top of this to make it even more fun. So I'm going to erase what is around here because I don't think we need it anymore. But I'll leave those perspective guides up because the next thing I want to talk about is her stockings. I've actually got a little bit of reference up to look at to make sure that I remember how to do this right. If you need to look at a picture for reference, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so she's got mismatched stockings, which you might know, it's kind of fun. Her left leg, which is the one that's behind her right now, is kind of on a diagonal, and the right leg is more like straight across. So I'm going to start with those. Because they're straight across, they're going to look a lot like the lines on this cylinder based on the perspective her leg is in. They kind of wrap around like this. And the leg in the back, it's on a diagonal, so it's kind of tricky, but imagine it's a little bit like they're wrapping around this shape. So it's going to be kind of like a swoop like this that I'm going to draw on her leg for her tights. Cool. I think I'm going to draw this line a little bit down in just to help sell that perspective that it's on top of the toes. Like that. Cool. Okay. Erase. And now if you want to make it feel like she's grounded in space, you can do this cool thing where you just add a little shadow underneath her. If you have a gray marker or something, you could do that. Or even if you just have your pen, just adding a little bit of like this flat shadow underneath where her feet are touching and a little bit under this toe that's off the ground. You see how that just makes her connected to the ground? Like we know where she's walking. It's a little trick to help your character feel a little bit more real. So I hope that you had fun drawing Vanellope, and I hope that you'll post your art if you feel comfortable with that and show me what you came up with for what is making her do this. Thanks so much for drawing with me. Have fun, guys. Bye.